Welcome to Health, Harmony, and Happiness with Kathy. I'm your host, Kathy Stricker. In my personal life, I am a wife to a dedicated law enforcement officer and mama to 3 lively littles. I'm an Adamantine Yoga teacher, health coach, community betterment advocate, and wellness enthusiast. But what I really like doing is connecting others with tools and resources that bring about health, harmony, and happiness. Whatever this looks like to you, I'm here to offer my own insights and tools from others that allow you to realize your full potential to live mindfully as your authentic, best self. Allow me to be a guide in discovering what works for you. Hey friends, I have got a very special treat for you today. I had the privilege of talking with Sheree Clark, who is a fellow Adamantine Yoga practitioner in Des Moines. She owns Fork in the Road and is a raw vegan chef as well as a midlife courage coach. And on top of all of that, just a delight to visit with. We had such a fun conversation and I can't wait for you to listen in and hear it. She's just such a fun lady. We talk about women's nutrition with aging, the relationships we create with food and around food, and how to set healthy boundaries, not just with food, but also with life in general, and the stories that we tell ourselves and that we have gotten wrapped up in. And then also find out how, with just 2 weeks left of being completely raw vegan for 1 entire year, she accidentally didn't meet her goal. It's kind of heartbreaking, but you'll have to listen to her response because the way that she looked at it and reframed the entire story to be positive is truly inspiring. So stay tuned for that. And head over to the show notes page as soon as you can because Sheree is offering my listeners a special gift just for listening to this show. That's KarenYogaWellness.com/podcast15. And while you're there, just a reminder that this is the last week to grab your free go-to healthy snack guide before it goes away. We're finishing up our series here on nutrition, so there's only a short while left for you to get that healthy snack guide if you're interested. And before we get going, just one more reminder that if you haven't subscribed to this podcast yet, would you be so kind as to do so? And then also leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. It's a great way to spread the word about this health, harmony, and happiness movement that we are creating with this podcast. Then I would be ever so grateful if you would just share at least this episode with one other person. I just want to thank each one of you for being here and for supporting this podcast and me in this adventure. It truly is something that I enjoy doing and I'm passionate about, and so I hope that you're getting a benefit out of it. And thank you so much for giving your time to listen and for helping me spread the word about health, harmony, and happiness and how they all intertwine to bring balance in some form or another throughout the various seasons of our lives. Okay, here's the show for today. So thanks, Sheree, for sitting down with me today to visit. You are what you call yourself a midlife courage coach. What does that mean?
Great question. So if you think about the words individually, midlife, so that includes working with people who are at the center point of their trajectory here on the planet. So I would say if we were going to call that a number, it would be someone in their 40s and then on up. And I don't have an ending to that. I will be tomorrow 63 and I still consider myself midlife.
Yay,
so
happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very
welcome.
much. And then the courage part, I say I am a courage coach because I believe that it takes guts to live the second half of your life for you when you've lived the first half of your life for everyone else.
Totally.
And I say that I say that to all midlife people, but particularly women, because we tend to be caretakers and we not only take care of our children and our aging parents, and our bosses, if we have them, and whatever, our clients, our employees, all of those things. But we also have a way of taking care of just about everything that everybody else has a need to that needs to be taken care of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We were just having a conversation with someone yesterday about that, and how women and men just think so differently, and men have a goal in mind and they go for it. And women think, oh, well, I'm going to put the laundry in, but on the way, I'm going to stop and put the roast in, or I'm going to do this and pick up these toys, or whatever it may be. And it's just a completely different way of thinking.
And taking care of everybody else in that process too, because on the way to put the roast in, you might suddenly remember, oh, so-and-so had that meeting with her boss today. I wonder how that went. I better give her a text and, hey, girl, you got this.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you stay focused and on target? And what does that look like then, midlife and beyond?
Oh, well, that's the key. The trick is understanding that boundaries are not bad things, that boundaries are mission critical and essential to getting things done. And a great example, and one that really ties into one of the things that we share in common, is yoga.
Absolutely.
I did an interview earlier this week, and someone asked me what my daily routine included. And I told her that I did yoga first thing in the morning. And she said, why? I mean, is that the only time that you could do it? And I said, oh, no. I mean, I could do it in the afternoon. It's a self-practice. I could do it at any time. But here's the rub. If I don't do it at 5:30 a.m., which is when I do it, there's a good chance, sometimes better than even, that it won't happen. Because if I committed to an afternoon practice, somebody might want to go to happy hour, and how would I say no to that? Or a girlfriend might call and have a crisis, or there could be a spare ticket to a show I want to see, or I could be so involved in getting my newsletter out and really just want to get that done that I never break away.
Right. There's too many other excuses that we can find or make for ourselves to keep going with what our day is already doing. You have the most control over that first part of your day.
Yes. Yes. Nobody interrupts me at 5:30 in the morning. And here's the other piece of that. The secret sauce is that I make sure nobody can mess with it, because I don't get on social media. But I get up at 4:15 and I make my bed. First I pee, then I make my I go back in. And so by making my bed, I've done two things. One is I've accomplished something before the day has even begun.
Absolutely.
I've got a win under my belt.
I make my bed with my husband in it. I just pull my side up. He's responsible for the rest.
He just has to fall out and pull up the other side, right?
Yes.
And then the other part of that is when I come back from 5:30 practice, I'm not tempted in the wintertime like it is, when it's dark, and to crawl back in because it's all been made. So, so it's those kinds, it's the little things, it's knowing, it's the same thing you would do if you were a mama with your kids. You say to them, yes, you can go out and play as soon as your homework is done. And yet we don't do that for ourselves. Yes. And so we don't set ourselves up for success.
Right. It's giving yourself permission to treat yourself really well first thing in the day.
Exactly.
And then you feel better. It's an amazing concept.
It definitely is. And here's the other part, because people listening will say, well, yeah, but there's days that it's like, I don't know about you, but I love to sleep in when it's raining because I have a balcony right outside of my window and it makes this pitter patter noise, and I have a cat and he's warm and he is extra furry, and it's really tempting to just hunker on down. But we all have those days where we don't want to get up. And then if you follow Mel Robbins, you just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 it and say, hey, you know what? I have never regretted going to practice. I've never regretted doing the things that I know are good for me. I have regretted sleeping in.
Exactly.
I have.
It's like then it throws the rest of your day off.
Yes.
Talk about balancing that though, and finding the grace in that, because there are some times when maybe you need sleep and your body is telling you that.
Definitely. And it might even go beyond that, Kathy. And here's the thing that I just came from myself, full disclosure. So I have been practicing for over 5 years. And in the beginning, I was the dogged, determined little yogi, and I was there 5 days a week. At the time when we started, it was 5 a.m.
Yeah. That I
Yeah.
still start at 5 a.m. and whew, it's tough some mornings.
It's hair raising, isn't it? Yes.
Yes.
So we did the 5 a.m. and then 7 a.m. on Saturdays. And so, and I didn't miss. I mean, it was just like I was on it. Well, sometimes life gets in the way. My business got busy. I started traveling. I had other things. And now I can tell you some of them are excuses. And some of them are just like things that you need to work around. And I took a sabbatical, and I wasn't thinking of it as a sabbatical at the time. I thought of it as I'm skipping a couple of days, and you know how this goes. A couple of days turns into a week, which turns into then, oh, I'm going to be so sore. I don't want to do that, or because you lose some of your ability and your agility, and I don't want to go in there. It's not going to look good. It's not going to be pretty. I gotta get better before I go back.
Yes. That is such a common thing, I think, for people. I hear that all the time. Oh, I need to just practice a little bit at home before I come back to the studio.
Right. Yeah. And
What do you
I don't
do?
know. Well, I tell you this, I'm not looking at everybody else's practice when I'm there. So why the hell would I be so vain to think that they're looking at mine?
No doubt.
So for me, it was just a matter of when I came back, which is just about a month ago now, I went back and I said, it's got to be with hard guardrails. I've got to make a commitment that I will go every day, including the days that I'm sore, including the days that it's raining and Lotus, my cat, is in bed with me, including all of those days. I cannot bail anytime during that first 2-week period, because if I do, I'm not back. I'm not back. And it's like, to me, it's like an alcoholic going to AA. When you've made this commitment that you're going to go through sobriety, there's no such thing as, just a martini because it's my birthday. It's like you're on or you're off, at least for me in the beginning, to get back on. I'm going to be traveling next week, and I've made a commitment to myself. I'll make it to you too. I'm taking my travel mat, and I will practice every day, but I've got my solid footing and my foundation under me. And it's that same thing with everything in life. We're talking about practice, but practice is life. It's the same thing with eating habits. It's so easy to, do a bad thing, be bad. Right. And then tomorrow, I'll be bad again. I'll start a new program on Monday. Well, you know how that goes.
Exactly. So how do you get over that hump with food? Let's move this into food then.
It's very similar. It's really just a matter of, for me, I have had the dogged, hard line rules around food. And for me, that doesn't work very well. Because food is more than nourishment in my world and in most people's world. It can be unhealthy because it becomes reward and it becomes punishment. If we can take that piece out of it and realize it's socialization, it's the concept of sharing bread, it's communion, it's the thing that we do. We take casseroles to people when someone passes away. We celebrate with wedding cake. That's the first communal bit of food that a couple shares when they're married. It's all of those things, Valentine's Day candy, all of it. And so it's hard to separate that. It's really a matter of saying, I have to have some realistic expectations around this stuff. And for me, that's what it becomes, where you're reflecting on it, but not obsessing over it.
So what do you do then? I mean, and I talked to you about this a little bit before about rewarding or using food as a reward with kids. We do that same thing as adults. Yeah. And I'd never even really thought of it, but using food as a punishment, we do that. We, in lots of different ways, whether it's food or alcohol or whatever it may be. Yes. If it's binging, if it's just doing something to sabotage the work that you've done maybe on your yoga mat because you're wanting to be social and go out and enjoy what your friends are doing, even though they may not live the lifestyle that you live exactly, or the dedication that you have to your body and to your health. How do you combat that? How do you, instead of using it as a reward, just accept that you're eating it or consuming it?
Well, for me, the big thing, it has to do with consciousness and deliberation. So when I'm in a social situation, as an example, and people are eating things that I'll use nachos as an example. Like, nachos are not a health food,
Right.
but damn, I love them. I just
Yes.
totally love them. And so when they're there in front of me, it's not a matter of, oh, I'll just eat one of the naked chips. Oh no, like, bring it on.
Right, right.
And so sometimes what I will do is, when food appears in a communal situation like that, that's when it's my time to excuse myself and go to the ladies' room. And I go to the ladies' room for a couple reasons. One, so I can be alone and collect my thoughts and not get swept up in the crowd mentality of the pylon. And two, so that I have an opportunity for other people to get a little bit of it. And when I come out, it might not be as attractive. Once a nacho plate has been dove into, it's not quite as delicious looking as it is when the server brings it right to
That is such a good point. Such a good point. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So looking for resolve, I've become the master at the quick exit, and the quick exit doesn't mean you're not leaving. You're not just telling people I'm going to the ladies' room and then you get in your car and drive away. But you're excusing yourself. You go in, maybe you just fix your hair, wash your hands, and then when you come back out, you've had that moment to make a conscious, clear-headed decision, as opposed to the swept up in the moment and in the whole, everybody's doing the wave in the stadium and you're doing it.
So do you go on and eat those nachos then, or eat some of them? Do you have more self-control then, or do you just say, I'm not doing it, I'm not eating them?
It depends on the day. There are some days that I'm like, screw it, all bets are off. Get out of my way. I want that one with the cheese on it.
Good. That is so realistic and so much more, I think, what people need to relate to and can relate to.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing. You enjoy it more because you did it knowingly. And another good example, I drink alcohol. I don't drink a lot, but I try not to drink a lot, but I drink wine. So I know I can have a glass of wine and still get up and go to yoga, no problem. I know that if I have a second glass, it's a challenge, and a third, forget it. It's not happening. So if I'm with friends and I make the decision, I say to myself, you realize that this isn't just having a third glass of wine, which already may not be the best idea. It's another decision you're making at the same time. Now, there are times that I have done it, and then I'm not there on the mat the next day. But most of the time when I do that, I realize by saying yes to one thing, I'm saying no to something else, and vice versa. By saying no to something, I may be able to say yes to something further.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not sabotaging and just going down that rabbit hole where then the next day your day starts off not how you would want it to, and you're not feeling your best to carry on throughout the rest of the day and serve whomever you have to serve.
Yes.
And then the guilt sinks in, because then you start thinking in your mind like, oh, why did I do that? Why I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
I'm a big fan of not shoulding on yourself. Like, that's something that I say to people frequently. I feel as though I say, you shouldn't should on yourself. And then I do it to myself and I catch myself doing it. It's just something that we all have to work on, I think, and get better at, I guess, as we go through life.
Yes, it's like breathing, it's like the conscious awareness. The conscious awareness is, I made a decision last night. I'm paying for the price for that today, and I cannot unring the bell. That's the other thing. I can shit all over myself like the best.
Right.
But what does that get you?
Right.
It changes nothing.
Exactly. So you're also a vegetarian. And when we're talking about food choices, you went through a time in your life when you were a raw foodie.
Yes.
And my goodness, that's when I first heard you talk, and you came to my yoga teacher training and talked about that, and you made us a meal, and it was absolutely delicious. And I still rave to my husband about how good this food was, and it wasn't cooked, and it was so great. And he thinks I'm crazy that we had sweet corn that wasn't cooked, and I made him have it at one point too. But it was just quite an amazing story that you had. But you still eat fun food like nachos, which is kind of a relief. Talk about being a vegetarian. Talk about that journey in your life and going through the raw food thing as well.
Well, it's funny because my food journey has been, I didn't realize it at the time that it was really it's this whole, like, it's taken on this whole life. So I became vegetarian in the early 90s because my dad had died of a heart attack when he was 42 years old. And then I found out I had high cholesterol, and becoming vegetarian was an easy way to reduce cholesterol, and it worked and all that. And then gradually over time, I became a little bit more, just like anything else, when you become more interested, more intrigued, you realize, ooh, this feels good. I wonder if I took it one step further, if it would feel better. And then it does. And then it does again, and then whatever. So I became a raw vegan. I went to culinary school for raw vegan to become a raw vegan chef, just for fun. I mean, it wasn't like anything. It was going to be my career in 2006. And so in that same year, a year later, I went on a 92-day juice only fast. I've done a 14-day water fast, which I did in a facility. I went to, it was medically supervised. So I've done a lot of experimenting with clean diet and, all those kinds of things. And I really have loved it and enjoyed it. What has happened for me over time was the apex of it, the pinnacle of it, was somewhere around 2000, let's say 9. This is an approximation. I could look back and find out actually, but I had decided to be raw vegan 100% for one entire year, like no cheating whatsoever.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I did it.
How? Like, and explain what that is. What does that mean then?
Well, it means no cooked anything. So nothing heated to more than 105 degrees.
105 degrees. I knew there was a temperature.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the 105 degrees basically is nothing cooked. I mean, you can't do that on a stove top, and your oven doesn't go down that low. So it means if anything is warm, it's been dehydrated. So there is a way to heat it, and you can do some food preparation, some gourmet kinds of things, which meant that most of my food I prepared for myself at home. So if I went out at all, I would go online, I would look and see what was on the menu, typically order a salad, most of the time bring my own dressing because I didn't know, they might make different kinds of salad, like roasted garlic salad. That's not raw.
Right.
So I bring my own dressing and so forth. And so I've told this story, and actually if somebody was really interested in hearing the whole story, I told it online at the Des Moines Storytellers Project in June of this year of 2019.
Cool.
I can give you that link.
Link to that. Yeah.
I will do that. So, what happened was I was in week 50 out of 52 of my year-long journey to be 100% raw, and I had made it. I mean, there was no violations, no anything. And P.S., wine is raw, but beer and distilled spirits are not. So, because those have been heated or pasteurized. So I did have some wine, not a lot, because you don't really, it wasn't compatible with what I was doing. But in week 50, I met some friends for brunch, and I ordered a salad, and I went online. I decided what salad I was going to order. I brought my own salad dressing. I was like good to go. By now, 50 weeks in, I'm a pro. So we were talking, and I took a big bite of salad and started chewing and realized that there was roasted red pepper in my mouth.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I looked at the menu, and I don't know how I overlooked it. I didn't catch it. And so sitting at the table, I had this like kind of, decision tree moment when I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Okay, so I could run to the bathroom and, expectorate, or I could I could spit it into my napkin, or I could, what do I do? And I ended up deciding, Kathy, that I would chew it and swallow it.
Oh my goodness.
50 weeks in. And what happened?
What did you feel? Keep going with your story. I'll ask questions later.
Okay. So I didn't say anything to my dining companions. They were in this animated conversation. I didn't say, "Oh my God, you guys, this is what happened." Because it was kind of this solo moment. It was this solitary moment to kind of answer your question. So I had this moment of feeling like, oh my God, I worked this hard, came this far, and effed it up without even. It's kind of like falling off the balance beam in the Olympics on just mounting the balance beam. Like, wait a second, I could do a triple. How did this?
Right.
And so I had that moment. But then I said to myself, you know what? I'm with my friends. I need to file this moment away and unpack it later because this needs to be done in solitude. And when I got home, I did, and I journaled about it. And here's what I came to, the conclusion. I realized that I had created a prison, and the prison was of my own making. That I had decided that I was going to be such a militant and so dogged and so perfect and so on it that there was no room and no margin for error. That it meant that I looked online, that I carried all my supplies in my purse, that I said no, and in that process, I suppose I could have made other people feel judged or less than. I might have had other people, I can tell you all the time, people would be like, well, I had friends that would go to 801 Steak and Chop House here in Des Moines and not invite me. And later I'd be like, oh, you guys, that sounds like so much fun, and thinking, why the hell didn't you invite me? And they were like, yeah, we were going to invite you, but we didn't know what you'd eat. And it's like,
sad. Want, want, want.
Right. So you create this kind of setup. And it's not just food that we do that in. We do that with other things that we become this kind of like Nazi about. And so after that point, I finished my 50. That was the only transgression. I had 2 more weeks to go. I finished it. But that was when I stopped being 100% raw. I still eat primarily raw foods. That's like that. I still am heavy on the raw, but it's not the only game in town. And I'm still vegetarian. I'm not vegan, but I am vegetarian. So I'm still, healthy by most standard American diet standards, but not nearly as dogged. And part of it has to do with the socialization. I'm a social being.
That's incredible. That's an incredible story. Yeah, I can see why you told it. You got to tell it in front of other people. Emotionally, how did you get over that? Or, you journaled about it, but what's the work that you had to do within your head to be okay with that?
It's reframing. It's understanding that it's part of my story. Had that not happened, I wouldn't have an example is this very story to tell. As you said, I told it in front of 1,300 people in a live audience, and it's a moment that most of us understand. Who hasn't been a perfectionist? Here's a couple of other examples. The people that don't invite friends over because my house is a mess. Yeah. That is a prison of your own making. Or you don't go to the party because you don't have anything to wear because you feel like you look fat and everything. And so you stand in the mirror and then you turn sideways and you're like, oh, look at my belly's pooching out. No, I'm not going to go. And every woman listening has had that moment, or
Exactly.
Every woman listening has had that time when you're like, I got a zit, or I feel like shit, or I've got a headache, and I don't want to be friendly. And that if you get out, your headache will go away.
Right.
You know that you're not fat in that dress because you'll see yourself 10 years later. I've done it. I look at a picture of myself and I'm like, oh my God, I look so cute in that. I felt like a fat pig. I remembered when that picture was taken and I didn't want that picture taken. What was I thinking?
Right.
And what was I thinking about my house being dirty? My house is not dirty. Yeah. And if my friends are not my friends and they're looking at the wrong thing.
Exactly. And it's just that self-sabotage. And we do it on the mat too, in yoga. And just like what we were talking about, not coming back to class. Why What's the excuse? What's the, and here's the thing that I think people also tend to beat themselves up about is they think that the teacher, so you think that James or that myself with my students, that we're going to be disappointed or we're going to be judging or something of that nature, when it's exactly the opposite. We're so grateful and happy that you are taking the time to come back to yourself and to be able to get back to that point, that it's just quite the opposite. So we put these, like you said, prisons around ourselves to restrict us from actually doing what life brings joy, what we get joy out of in life, I guess.
Exactly. And to your point, when I came back in this last month, I am and have been for a couple of years been able to drop back. And so, but when I came back, something happened in my head, and I got scared, and I started to drop back, and I stood back up, and I was like, and I felt shame, and I felt humiliation, and I felt like less than. And I started to do it once, and I thought to myself, you know what? I really need to nip this in the bud, or it could be something I can't get rid of. So I caught James's eye in class, and I said, will you please spot me? I'm afraid of drop back. And he just looked at me and didn't say a word and nodded. Like he got it. Like it's not a physiology. Physically, I'm still perfectly capable. But I saw that floor when I bent over, and I was like, oh my God, this thing's going to come at me too fast. I can't do this. And he spotted me every day until, frankly, today.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you. It was the first day that I said, will you please stand here and only touch me if I look like my face is going to plant on the mat? And my face did not plant on the mat and whatever. And so, but there's no shame in that. And actually, it's a beautiful thing because it makes the relationship that much stronger. I'm there in the studio because of the other people that are there. Yeah. My teacher, the other people on the mats, the energy, the vibe, the feeling, the sound of the metronome echoing off of those walls. That is my sanctuary, and it's not the same for me at home. And it doesn't mean I don't do it at home. When I'm on the road, I won't have any choice. I'll have to do it that way. But it's just it's part of the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And I think that's what makes this practice special too. And any good yoga teacher is going to have the same feeling and the same open arms to welcome a student back, because it's all part of the journey. Yeah. And it's all part of just creating health, harmony, and happiness in life, in my book. And that's kind of how I look at it, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, I've got a few more questions. I did a informal poll of some of my students to come up with some of the questions that they might have. So we're going to move into that now. One of them is, how do you go about optimizing nutrition for women as they age when there is restricted calories? So like when there's no room for treats. And that's, again, now that I'm reading this, going back to that kind of militant mindset of, well, I can't have that, so I'm not going to, just putting those walls up around yourself.
Yes, exactly. So one of the things is, I would say the first thing I'd say is define, air quotes, treat. What is a treat? And so restricted calories doesn't mean there's no room for treat. And by treat, I'm assuming that this person asking the question probably means something sweet. And so I do not eat refined sugar. I haven't for 10 or 12 years. But I do like things like dates, which are a 50-calorie, high-fiber, whole food. And my favorite treat, if you will, or sweet, because I like to end especially my evening meal with something sweet, is to take a teaspoonful of nut butter, like almond butter, and I eat raw almond butter, and stuff it into a medjool date and eat it slow. And
Yum.
it's fat and a good healthy fat and not crazy calorie dense. I mean, don't put in 2 cups of nut butter, stick
Right.
to a teaspoon. That would be one example. Another example, I have a recipe for a raw vegan chocolate mousse, which uses avocado as the primary fat source.
Yeah,
And
you made that for us, and it was amazing.
it's delicious. And then the cool part is that since I made that, I've discovered I altered the recipe and made a peanut butter version. So you use
Oh,
powdered peanut butter. And so then what I do is I will sometimes make a parfait. So I'll do a layer of the chocolate mousse and a layer of the peanut butter and a layer of the chocolate and a layer of the peanut butter. And it's not a big vessel of it. It's a really small, like one of those little, it almost looks like a shot glass.
yeah.
To eat it slow.
But
Eat
how
it with
decadent.
yes.
Oh my gosh.
So there is room for sweets, I think. Now, if the person asking the question has a sugar restriction, that might be a different story, and we'd have to look at that differently. But stop looking at that as being like off limits.
Yeah, good. I like that. Thank you. Is it possible to feel better as you age? I answered this question for her. I was like, well, here's my take on it. Let's see what Sheree says. But I said, absolutely, I think it is, because I mean, that's what we're doing on the mat. And that's the idea. It's those choices. Talk more to that.
Well, I would say not yes is not my answer. My answer is hell yes. And here's the thing, for me, as I've gotten older, I find I care less about what other people are thinking when it comes to me, because the reality is I've discovered, like I said, they don't think about me.
Right.
They're thinking
It's not always me.
Yes, exactly. So that part is freeing. The other part that's freeing is it kind of harkens back to your question about my 50-week mess up when I ate that roasted raw pepper, and you were like, well, how did that feel? And it's when you realize that everything that happens to you in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the success, the flops, is all part of your story. And if I didn't have a life experience that included massive kick-ass success, I've done some freaking amazing things that I'm proud of, and I'll tell you all about them sometime. That's part of my story. But so is the time that I got kicked to the curb and knocked down and didn't think I was going to make it. The time I almost died, that's part of my story. The time that I said the stupidest ass thing and then had to eat crow, that's part of my story. All of that, it's part of your story. And when you're in it and living it, you may not love it, but it's part of what makes us who we are. And for those who are listening who are parents, if you think about it, if you want to teach your kid what a hot stove is, you can sit there and say to your son or daughter, hot, don't touch, it's hot, don't touch. And hopefully they'll get it. But the reality is they probably have to come near to that hot burner to understand the concept of what hot is and why that's bad, and they will never forget it.
Yeah. So true. So true. What's a reliable factor to know whether or not progress is happening as you age? So if you're progressing towards feeling better, what's a reliable factor? My one-word response was adamantine, because you know how you feel when you're on the mat. You know how you feel when it's a good day and what you've done leading up to that. And you know how you feel on a bad day and when your practice doesn't feel like it has felt at its optimum.
Yes,
what do you think?
I think that, and I would also remind everyone that any given day, any given practice is a snapshot of a moment in time. It's a continuum. It's not who you are and everything that's led up to this point. It's today. It's this moment. And there are some days that I wake up and I know why I'm off. Maybe I had popcorn at the movies, which is a bad idea for a lot of reasons. And because I can tell you, anytime I have popcorn at the movies, the next day I feel it on the yoga mat because my fingers and toes are stiff from the sodium.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, and so do I eat popcorn at the movies? Yes. I do, but I also what my preference is to eat it on a Saturday because I don't practice on Sunday. So, that's one way of
True. Yeah.
the other thing is I'm a journaler, and what I think is important is benchmarks. It's continuums. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy the fact that James has been videographing, taking photographs. That we make that kind of documentation is that you can see it. You may not feel like your back bend is deeper or that your tuck is tighter or whatever you're working on. But when you see it and you look, and I see a video from 3 months ago or from before my sabbatical and see now, I can see the progress.
Yeah. I had someone comment to me just this morning, actually, how he felt like he had regressed or was regressing in a particular posture. And I was like, no, we're setting it up a little bit more efficiently. You're not regressing. And there are times when we go through life, it's a season where this is maybe there's something else going on for you that is causing you to have this change. And it's not a regression because your body knows what to do.
Yes. Well, and that's interesting because he and I could have a beautiful conversation. Because, for example, in sage pose, from the get-go, when I first started practicing back when James was in the old place, I could bind pretty quickly and pretty easily. But then he said, why don't you stop binding and work on getting it a little bit deeper? And the reality was, yes, I could grasp my two hands, but it wasn't pretty. And so I would rather have it be a deeper twist and have it be set up correctly and not have the air quotes icing on the cake of being able to clasp my hands, because I recognize, and that's another part of perhaps of the aging process, perhaps, I don't know what, but the ego I don't need to grasp. I don't need to hang on to that.
Yes.
That's what that was. My ego was getting in the way and saying,
oh my gosh,
you can't hang on to your wrist anymore. What's this about? And it's like, yeah, I was hanging onto my wrist, but it was sloppy.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Ego gets in the way of a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things, man. And it's hard to realize that sometimes, I think, and to admit it to ourselves. What are realistic, sustainable health goals for women 40 and beyond?
I'd say almost anything that you want. The thing that I have struggled with, and some of my clients are in that now, and I have clients all over the world, so some of them can't come to our studio, and
right.
But I have clients who will decide that what worked when they were younger is what they're going to do now. So they ran marathons when they were in their 20s, or they did the equivalent of CrossFit or XFit or whatever the hell that stuff is. That violent, that violent beat
right.
on yourself. And then feel like hell, and eat a bunch of stuff that's not good for you and that messes up your blood chemistry, all that stuff. And because once again, ego, what they decide is results, what they decide is looks like success is to be able to wear a 4 again. Well, okay, yeah, you could probably squeeze your ass into a 4, but it's the equivalent of do I really want to clasp my hands, or do I really want to set this pose up right so that when I can clasp my hands, when I can wear whatever it is I'm wearing, I look good, I feel good, and I haven't had to beat the crap out of myself to get there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think being able to admit that to yourself, and it's the acceptance and the knowing that this is who you are and being okay with that. And that's part of the journey. But I don't think sustainable goals are being able to run a marathon at, like you did maybe when you were in your 20s or 30s. And that's just so hard on your body that how does that become sustainable then? It's not. So I think you have to pick and choose. Like you said, you've got to decide what's going to work best for you.
And part of that deciding has to do with going deeper. And that's why that one of the reasons that I have a coach and I am a coach is I ask the questions when somebody says to me, I want to run a marathon this year. And I ask them, why? What is your goal? Well, it seems like a good way to lose weight. Okay. What's underneath losing weight? What's underneath? What is it? What's under there? And a lot of times it's something that has nothing to do with what they're deeming the solution is. In some cases, let's go in the case of my midlife women area. If I ask a woman that, in some cases I'm going to get down to, she's going to say, well, I'm afraid that my husband isn't attracted to me anymore, and he's looking at younger women, and so I need to get my physical self in a place where I can compete with those 33-year-olds. That's a different issue and a different problem that needs to be addressed in a different way than running 26 points.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is a relationship issue.
So it's such a deeper problem.
Yes.
That needs to be addressed.
Bingo.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're helping bring these clients that you work with health, harmony, and happiness. That's your part of what you do. How do these elements fit into your life?
Oh, wow.
Health, harmony, and happiness.
Okay, so the health part is pretty, I think we've really kind of covered here in this conversation. And health, remember, is all aspects. Health is not just the physical being, it's our relationships. Because I believe that any area of life that is unbalanced affects the other areas. When you are having an issue with your spouse, a tussle with your best friend, that might be the reason you're reaching for more chocolate. That might be the reason why you're going to go out and have that martini, or whatever your go-to, your salve, your numb out technique is. So health has to do with the balance of a lot of things.
Exactly. And that's why I have our studio is Cairn Yoga and Wellness Studio. And the Cairn is that kind of health model of, if one thing is disturbed, that balance is going to be off. The Cairn's going to fall.
Yes. Bingo. We are spirits. Exactly. Harmony has to do with realizing that sometimes, and I'm just giving you my own interpretation of it, sometimes it's not going to be a bed of roses. There are days that it feels like pushing a damn boulder up a hill. Mm-hmm. And there are days that it's hard and horrible and awful. And the good news is those days don't last forever. And there's an expression that I did not make up, but I really love. And that is, it all comes out okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
I like it. I like it a lot. Oh, that is so true.
Yes.
So true.
Yes. And then the happiness part of it is, I think that for me, happiness is not defined by exterior factors. Now, it's a lot easier to be happy when you don't worry about money, when you look good in everything that's in your closet, and when things are going your way. But happiness also has to do with realizing that we are rich beyond measure when we have solid relationships, when we have health, when we have mental acuity, when we can have a conversation like this one and walk away from it feeling energized. Because I don't know how you feel, but when we started this conversation, I was in a good place. I'm in a better place.
Me too.
Now. Yeah.
Most definitely.
It's awesome.
It's the non-material blessings that we have that really emphasize happiness and that bring that happiness into your life, then, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's serendipity. You know how when things happen and some people say, well, it's a God thing. And other people say there are no coincidences. And other people say whatever it is. When I think that if we keep our eyes opened for those things, there's more of them around us than what we realize. And that when you're just like, when you walk around and your heart is open and you are ready and willing to receive, then your blessings are dumped on you.
Exactly. I completely agree. It's like, have you read the Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life?
Yes.
So
yes.
it's like blessing everything, Oh, bless this bill, bless this, I don't know, car, bless that person who just cut me off. I don't know, it totally changes your perspective and your outlook. And honestly, things really aren't that bad when you're blessing everything, and blessings start to come to you then.
Yes, exactly. Even bad things can end up having, and you could argue and you could say, well, losing a loved one, how does that ever turn into anything good? There are things that happen in a sequence, in a way, and sometimes it can be traced back to something that we deem a disaster or a catastrophe in the moment that it happens.
Exactly. I can think of actually a couple off the top of my head that because of a death, a blessing has come from that.
Yes.
Although it's sad, there is also joy that comes from it in the end. So
yes. Well, it's like the Lion King circle of life.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Yay. Okay. That's all I've got today. I thank you so much, Sheree, for sitting down with me. This has been fun, and I am definitely more energized. I don't want to stop working on this now. I've got to go get my kids, but I want to do all my editing and everything now.
That's awesome.
How it goes. So thank you, and enjoy your trip.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor you picked me.
Before we go, where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
So if you want to send me an email, the easiest way is info, I-N-F-O, at fork-road.com. Or you can visit my website, which is www.fork-road.com. And if you visit the website, that's constantly changing. One of our fellow Adamantine practitioners, Sally Cooper-Smith, does my graphics, and she's going to be working on my website in the next couple of months. So be watching for that, and do visit and let me know how I can help you. Just reach out to me. An email call.
You have a beautiful website, so Sally does great work. So, is there what if you've got a special offer on your website too? What is that?
My special offer is actually changing all the time. And you know what I think I'm going to do? I will give your listeners a special offer. I'll send you a link and a little goodie for them that they can't get anywhere else. We'll leave it.
Thank you so much, Sheree. Thank you. And we'll talk to you later. Have a good trip.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sheree. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So much good information. I had an incredible time interviewing her and really enjoyed every minute of that interview. So I hope you guys did too. Thanks again for tuning in. Remember to head over to the show notes page to get your free gift from Sheree, and that it is also the last week to get my go-to healthy snack guide on the website. So be sure to pick that up before it goes away. Also, if you'd be so kind to remember to leave a rating or review, I would really, truly appreciate it. Let's grow this podcast and this movement to be worldwide. See you next week. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you hear, help us grow this podcast by sharing it with even just one other person. And it would mean so much to me if you would take a moment of your time to write a review. Your comments and feedback are what help me continue to bring you topics and guests that can help you and others on their journey in creating health, harmony, and happiness. Remember to head on over to CairnYogaWellness.com to get the show notes and links from today's episode. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Cairn Yoga Wellness, and to continue connecting with more resources that could help you enhance health, harmony, and happiness in your own life, subscribe to this podcast. Thanks again for listening.